Hey, and welcome to the start of the MTB Fitness YouTube channel. Now, me and Sophie, my girlfriend, have just moved into a new house amidst all this crazy corona stuff going on. In fact, we actually managed to move on the day of the lockdown here in the UK. So about lunchtime, we heard that there was probably going to be a lockdown that night, so we managed to hire a van and get pretty much everything moved that day before the whole country kind of went into lockdown. I'm not training clients because obviously there's a lockdown, so you can't really leave your home except for one bit of exercise a day, and I've now got loads more room in the new house. So one of the things that I'm going to do is set up this YouTube channel. I was planning on doing this anyway, but now that we're sort of here with loads of extra time and we're here on lockdown, I thought now would be a great time to do it. So I've set up this cool backdrop. I've just got all my biking gear and shoved all that behind us, so at least we've got a bit of an interesting backdrop to go by. And from here on out, I'm going to be filming 3 videos a week and uploading them to YouTube throughout the week. So there's going to be different sorts of videos. I'm going to make sure that each one is nice and varied because I want to make sure that they stay interested. But it's going to be really, really cool, and I feel that now's the right time, really. So this isn't going to take away from any of the other content. All the other content is still going to be going live on Facebook and Instagram, my daily emails and the podcast. All those are still going, but now we get to add YouTube into the mix as well, which is really exciting. So today I'm going to be doing a Q&A where I'm going to be going through 7 questions that you guys and girls at home have asked. So I've got them loaded up on my computer ready to go, and I'm going to be answering them one by one. There's some really good questions on there. I think you'll find them really useful. Hopefully anyway. So before we do go any further, to make sure that you can follow along with any future videos, make sure that you subscribe and also hit that notification icon as well, and then what will happen is whenever there's a new video, it'll pop up and tell you that there's a new video from me. Make sure you do that before we carry on. And then without further ado, let's get into the questions. Alright, let's get into the questions. So, what I did is I sent out an email out to everybody that follows my daily emails, and I gave those people the first chance to ask the questions. So if you do want to put a question in future, you need to go and sign up to my daily emails. So I'll head to the website, which is mtb.fitness, sign up on there, and then when you're a subscriber, when I'm looking for new questions for these, I'm going to ask on there. So if you want to ask a question, you need to be an email subscriber to get the chance to do that. So head to mtb.fitness, and then on the left it says daily email, so you can sign up to do that there. Now the first question is from Anonymous, and he said he has a YT Capra AL 2016 first of all, and he's from Romania. Now he says, how can I overcome fear? For example, the fear of hitting that drop. The fear of trying to do a tabletop for the first time. So what he's saying there is that he's essentially gets scared on the bike, which I know a lot of people listening to this will suffer from, if you can call it that, although I don't think you can really say you suffer from fear. It's just something that happens. It's a natural response. I'm the same as well. So when I started riding again 4 or 5 years back, I was terrified of everything on the bike. I remember there's some descents on my old local now, but on my local trails, which at the time seemed ridiculously steep and completely unrideable, and to be honest, I was just terrified of them. And now I go down them with absolutely no hesitation and no issue. So there's a few things I think you can do to overcome fear. I think the first thing would be to get some skills coaching, because that's massively helpful. Because what a skills coach will do is they'll show you, first of all, the correct technique to do things, because that's really important. They'll show you what you're doing wrong on the bike, but they'll also show you what you're doing right as well. And I think that's really important, to have somebody look at you and say, yeah, you're doing this correct. I'll give you a real life example from me. One of my sort of fears, if you like, is big drops. Like, I'm getting better and better at them, but drops make me nervous. Part of the reason is that Ozzy, my best mate, went head first over one and put himself in an air ambulance. So I was the only person there dealing with that, so that left kind of a lasting impression. So when I do go up to any drop or whatever, I get a bit of a knot in my stomach. But I'm getting better and better and better at drops, and I'm now doing bigger and bigger ones more confidently. And one thing that really helped me was going to do some coaching with Elliot Heat, the EWS rider. He's got a coaching business, Ride MTB Coaching. And he was just looking at my drop technique, and he looked at it, he was like, yeah, perfect, everything's fine with your technique, you don't need to improve anything. And when he said that, that gave me the confidence to then know, right, okay, maybe I am doing the right things and I can start to build up, because I had somebody confirm that what I was doing was the right thing. So I'd say to get over fear, get some skills coaching first of all, that's really important. Then the second thing is just accept that it's completely normal. So everybody gets scared. It's your body's natural response to something that's uncomfortable and that's a bit different. So what I'd say with that is just accept that you're gonna feel fear and sort of stop, take some deep breaths and relax and understand that you're not stupid for feeling scared. You shouldn't feel embarrassed about it. It's totally normal. And I would say, moving on to step 3 that's kind of tied into that, is the way that you get more comfortable is to just gradually step up bit by bit. At first, if you look at a drop and it's say yay high, like about what, 3 foot off the ground, you'll start and you'll look at that and you'll think, oh my god, that's way too high, I can't roll that, that's absolutely terrifying, and your brain gets scared. But what you want to do, you don't want to start off on drops that are 3 foot or 5 foot or 6 foot. You want to start off with a curve and get used to going off curves. When you very first started, you might have been nervous rolling off a curb, and you soon got over that fear within like the first week. And then you go a little bit bigger, and then a little bit bigger, and then a little bit bigger, and a little bit bigger, and you just gradually build it up. And then what's happening as your skills are building up, but your brain is also getting used to that fear, if you like, and it's getting used to being able to handle bigger drops and the bigger obstacles and the more difficult obstacles, and it'll then just start to become your new norm, and your brain won't figure that fear response because you've done it over and over. So it's about building up bit by bit by bit by bit and not being scared of doing that, not being embarrassed of walking certain sections of trail if you don't feel comfortable doing it. It's fine. Like, the worst thing you can do is like my mate Ozzy, who had zero fear, and he just sent himself off a 5 foot drop without any technique. He was in the bottom gear pedaling away, and he literally just rode up to it and dropped off the front of it, landed on his neck, and the surgeon at the hospital in intensive care said that he doesn't know how he's not severed his spinal cord. The only reason that he didn't was because he had good big trap muscles and he's nice and strong and they protected him. But he's this close to paralysing himself because he didn't have any fear, but he didn't have the skills to match up with that because he was a new rider, like we've all been there. And he literally just, like I say, just barreled over the front. So fear is a good thing, it protects you, but what you don't want to do is become a slave to that fear. You need to gradually build up and just allow your comfort zone to expand as your skills expand, but do it gradually, do it bit by bit. There's a good book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, and that's, I've not even read the book, but the title of the book is great. I think that's kind of accepting that you're gonna feel fear and you need to do that anyway. And another one, I could talk about this could be a full video in itself. Another book by Sheryl Sandberg, who I think is the COO of Facebook, she's got a book called Lean In, and that's talking about when you're skiing, the worst thing you can do is lean away from the mountain and try and cling to it because then you don't have any grip. What you actually need to do when you're skiing is lean into your fear and lean down into the mountain, and when you do that, it's actually a lot safer and you end up skiing well. So I think that's quite a good lesson in there as well. Next up, this is another anonymous one. Energy drinks, sugar-free or otherwise, yay or nay? First of all, they're terrible for you. They're full of caffeine, they're full of E numbers and additives, and they're full of sugar. You won't be seeing a Red Bull sponsor anytime soon to this channel. Probably bring this video back up in 2 years when they offer me £1 million. So, energy drinks, like, the blanket answer to this is no. So 99% of the time, no. Don't have energy drinks, they're terrible for you. The vast majority of athletes who are sponsored by Red Bull or Monster or any of the other energy brands, and I don't have anything against them doing this, is because they get paid 20 or 30 grand a year to be sponsored by Red Bull, and at the end of the day there's not tons of money in mountain biking. And that can literally be the difference between someone being an amateur and somebody being a pro rider, because they need to be paid to do the job, to train, to ride. So I genuinely don't have anything against riders being sponsored by Red Bull and other energy drinks, but I think most of them, if you were to ask them, they'd say, yeah, they're not good for you, they're not good for your health. And I can promise you that the pro athletes don't go around drinking Red Bull like it's water. Like, that just doesn't happen, I can promise you that. With that being said, so understanding that in general they're not good for you and you should avoid them, I think there are times when you can use them, or probably time I should say, and that's if it's before 3 PM, because you don't really want to be having caffeine after 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so before 2 or 3 PM, and if you feel that you really need a kick to train, I wouldn't have it before a ride. And the reason for that is because after about an hour, the caffeine and sugar kick is going to start coming down. Now what you don't want to do is have a massive sugar rush and a massive caffeine rush before a 3-hour ride, and then an hour in, find that your energy levels are starting to dip because you're crashing off that caffeine and sugar. So I wouldn't ever, unless it's less than an hour, I would never have an energy drink before a ride. But you might want to have one if you're really lean already and weight loss isn't a goal. And again, it's early in the day. You could have one before a workout to give you a big kick, or you could have it before an interval session. I sometimes find, or I always have a coffee before I train or ride, again if it's early in the day. And sometimes I have a handful of sweets, like a handful of sugar. Now weight loss isn't a goal for me at the minute, and I don't have a lot of sugar the rest of the time, but I do find when I do that, the sugar running through my system sometimes makes me train harder than I would have done if I'd not had that kick. I don't do that every time, but that's sort of when you could use an energy drink. If you're doing an interval session that's going to last less than an hour, or you're doing training from home or a gym session. Not that any of you are doing gym sessions at the moment. In general, they're pretty crappy for you, so I would avoid them. Next up, yeah, this guy's not anonymous, so this is Jim Burns, and he's coming from Minnesota, USA. Now I'll read out the full question, but there's just one bit that I'm really going to answer here. Hi Matt, I've just started the 12-week training program. So that's the MTB Fitness 12-week training program. I'm on the second day and so far I'm liking it. I'm interested in the tips for guys over 50. I'm 52 and used to be a hardcore mountain biker and dirt bike rider. But when you get married and have kids, you run out of time and money for fun stuff. I'm also looking for information on what to take to give me energy before I go on a bike ride and recovery after a mountain bike ride. I currently live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, USA. Shout out to USA. Love USA. Me and Sophie go there pretty much every year to Florida. Not quite Minnesota, maybe I need to go there. First of all, the part in there where he's talking about he wants tips for over 50-year-olds. So when I sent out this email, I'm also in the process of writing a guidebook for over 50-year-old mountain bikers. So this is going to be a low price guide, roughly £10, and it's 50 tips for mountain bikers over 50. So what I'm doing in that is going into detail for all the specific issues that mountain bikers over 50 have, and really helping educate mountain bikers over 50 on how to overcome them. So that's what he was referencing in the first part of the question. Now the second part was, how do you fuel yourself properly before a ride, and how do you help yourself recover after a ride? So there's many different parts that we could go into here. I think the first thing when it comes to fueling yourself pre-ride is that you want to make sure that you're eating a good meal before you head out first of all. So it starts actually, to be honest, before you immediately head out for a ride. So in the 2 to 3 days leading up to a ride, you need to be eating well. You need to be eating 3 to 4 meals a day that are based around protein, fats and carbs. You need to make sure that you're drinking plenty of water, you're not drinking a load of alcohol, and you're just making sure in general that your diet is good. Now with that being said, assuming the rest of your diet's good, before a ride I generally have some carbs and some fats and protein. So for me, I'd have something like a bowl of Weetabix or a bowl of porridge, for example, and then a side of 3 scrambled eggs with some cheese in there, maybe some baked beans as well. So you've got a good mix of protein, fats and carbs. And what that will do is the carbs will help fuel you, and the proteins and the fats will help the energy release be sort of controlled over a long period of time, and it won't dip too fast. You also want to make sure you hydrate. Then during your ride, you want to make sure that you're eating every 30 to 60 minutes, and I'd have medium release carbs from that, something like half a cereal bar every half an hour as a really easy to understand guide. And you want to eat before you get hungry. So if you're out on a ride and your energy levels start to dip and you start to get hungry, you should have already eaten 20 minutes before that. You want to avoid getting to that point. And then for recovery, as soon as you get through the door, if you're going to eat a meal within an hour of getting in, then you don't need a protein shake. But for most people listening to this, I advise a protein shake just to help get your protein intake up. So most people listening to this, get in the door from a ride or get back to your car, have 1 scoop of protein mixed with water. That's a whey protein shake, or maybe a vegan protein shake or a soy protein shake if you can't have dairy sauce. And then 30 to 90 minutes after that, I'll be looking at having a meal with lean protein, because that'll digest faster. So something like chicken or turkey, for example. If you're a vegetarian or a vegan, you'll be having lean protein sources anyway. So I'd have that with some carbs like a potato or some pasta, some rice and some vegetables. Really simple. I wouldn't have a high fat meal after exercise after a ride because that digests a bit slower, and immediately after a ride you want to start the recovery process. So I'd stay low fat, high protein, quite lean meal there, and have some carbohydrate with it as well. If you want more tips on that, I've got a full nutrition guide which goes into detail, so go to mtb.fitness and then have a read about the nutrition guide in there, because that's a full guide chatting in detail about all of those kinds of things. That was question 3. 4 more to go. Yeah, Ant Maddock says, do you have any advice for people 60 plus regarding recovery times? Does this age group need a bit more recovery time? First of all, shout out to the riders over 60, smashing it, good work Ant, like it. Yeah, generally the older that you get, the more recovery time you're going to need. Sleep becomes much more important, nutrition becomes even more important, and listening to your body becomes even more important. Like, you can't just keep pushing through like when you're 20, because you're more likely to injure yourself, pull a muscle, run yourself into the ground. As you know, I'm a big believer that a lot of age is in your head, and if you believe that you're young and fit, you're going to act that way as well, so that's a massive part of it. However, there are definitely physical things, physical kind of symptoms, if you like. Sounds like you've got an illness. Physical things that come along with getting older, and I'd say a slightly slower recovery time is one of those things. So I would really nail your nutrition all the time. Make sure you're getting plenty of protein, that's hugely important. I'd probably have a multivitamin and an omega-3 supplement in there just to help ensure you're getting the basics, so I'd do that. Another thing I would do is make sure you're getting good quality sleep, 6 to 8 hours of sleep a night. I would stretch daily and maybe look at having a magnesium salt bath after a ride, that's optional. But then as well, just allow yourself that bit longer between your rides and workouts. So it's totally fine to recover a little bit slower at 60 than you did at 20. In fact, I'd say it's normal. So just allow yourself that bit longer to recover between your rides and your workouts, and plan accordingly for that. Next up, we have Reggie, who's from Palmerston North, New Zealand. Like it, got some wicked riding out in New Zealand. My question is, if you're currently training by riding 3 to 4 times a week, how would you integrate these sessions with a 12-week program? What rides and or elements of the program would you drop or change to make the combined workload manageable? So what Reggie's asking about here is he's following my 12-week MTB training program, which requires you to train 3 times a week at home at the moment, or in the gym, but train 3 times a week and do 2 interval sessions a week. But he also wants to ride 3 to 4 times a week as well. So there's a few different avenues you could go down with this question. If you're young, very fit and have loads of time, I would just add the workouts on. So you might ride in an evening. If you're riding 4 times a week, you could train on 2 of the days, but then that still leaves 1 workout to do, 1 sort of home workout. So you could double up on one day. So you could do weights in the morning and then ride at night. So that would be an option. If you're a bit older, first of all, for the intervals, if you're doing 4 rides a week, I would just do intervals on 2 of those rides. So if you're going for a 2-hour ride, you could do half an hour of intervals at the end of your ride, for example, or you could do a whole ride as an interval session instead of one of your rides. So you're still getting out on the bike, but you're doing intervals for those. And then yeah, I'd probably do 6 days a week total. If you're riding 4 times a week, I'd probably do 6 days a week of training, ride 4 times a week, 1 or 2 of those rides have your intervals in. 2 of the days have your workouts on, and then I'll do 1 double up day, so maybe like a workout in the morning and a ride at night. So that's how I would fit it in for this specific example. But the key for this is you need to bear in mind your recovery. So depending on how well you're eating, how well you're sleeping, how well you recover and your age, that might be a little bit much for some people. So it's about getting a balance. So what I would say is that if you only ride 4 times a week and you don't currently do any kind of weight training or resistance training, and you can only train 4 times a week, for example, it might actually be worth dropping maybe 1 of those rides and then adding in a weight session and doing a couple of other weight sessions before you ride through the week. Because if you only ride, you're going to be developing muscle imbalances, you're not going to be building strength up as well as you can, you're going to have some weak muscles that need working on, and you're going to be super tired as well. So taking some time to train off the bike is really, really beneficial. The other thing you can look at doing as well is, like, pro riders have an on-season and an off-season. So in the off season they do a load more weight training, and then through the summer or when they're riding loads they do a bit less weight training just to help them maintain. So it all depends on the person or on the individual. Me personally, my schedule, or at least normal schedule sort of pre-corona. So right now I'm doing 3 workouts at home, which are weight workouts, and then I'm doing 2 rides a week and then 1 interval session a week. So I personally train or ride 6 times a week. 2 full rides, 1 interval session, which is on my bike. I'm going to be sprinting up and down the hill at the new house, and then 3 weight sessions. That's how I fit it into my week. So yeah, that's how you can do that. Next up, last 2 questions. Yeah, this one's got his name in. This is David Payne. He's not said where he's from. Hope the house move went well, and I hope you both are settling in well. Anyway, my question is, I had my ankle fused 5 years ago, and I'm losing muscle from my calf slowly but surely. What exercises can I do to try and keep what muscle I have left, considering I have no movement in my ankle joint? Keep up the good work, and please, more podcasting. So, there will be more podcasts, don't worry about that. I'm recording one today actually, so when you watch this video, there's probably already been another podcast that's gone live. But now that we're on lockdown, I can easily, consistently do a podcast a week, so don't worry about that. If you want to listen to those, just go on any podcast app, type in MTB Fitness, and it'll come straight up. That's the MTB Fitness podcast you can check out. So, he's asking, his ankle is fused, which basically means that he can't move that. Now, if this is my foot, and this is my leg, for most people, to work your calf muscle, you're doing like that kind of movement. So if you're doing a calf raise, for example, the muscle in your calf here is shortening, and that means that it's working. So if this here is fused and you can't move it, obviously you're going to struggle to get that movement. So that calf muscle is never going to be the same size as your other one that's not fused, first of all, because there's only so much you can do with it and the other leg is going to take over. So I just accept that to a certain extent. The things that you can do to build it is you can work your calf muscle in a hip extension, like a Romanian deadlift. So, no idea if you can see me on camera, but I'll try this anyway. Shift this out of the way. So, a Romanian deadlift is where you have a bar in front of you, or a kettlebell, keep your shoulders back, and then you push your hips back and you go into a pivot backwards. And what that does is it stretches all down your posterior chain, basically all down the back of your legs, and it helps you stretch that off. So what will happen when you get to the bottom, you're going to be using you've got 2 muscles in your calf. You've got your soleus and you've got your gastrocnemius. And your gastrocnemius actually passes over your knee joint there. So what that means is that you don't just work that calf muscle when you're doing calf raises, you also can work it when you're doing hip extensions, like that, and when you're doing a hamstring curl. So in the gym, the hamstring curl machine where you sat and you're pulling it down towards you, if you jump on the hamstring curl machine in the gym when they're open again, point your toes as far, oh, can't move it, never mind, so just keep it locked in place, and then you can do a hamstring curl in the gym. That will also help get your calf a little bit as well. But get my squeaky chair back. It's important to understand that calf muscle is never going to be the same size as your other one that isn't fused, but you can do hip hinge exercises, and you can also do types of hamstring curl just to get your calf a little bit involved. And then I would say riding as well. Riding is going to work your calf a little bit, so obviously you can do that. But they're the 3 things that I'd be looking at doing to build up your calf muscle when it's fused in place. Next up is, and the final question for the day. Hi Matt. Barry Napier Skit 42 from Yorkshire. Shout out to Yorkshire, that's where I live now. Oh, here we go. I've got tight hamstrings. I stretch each and every day. Whatever I do, they still feel tight. It doesn't cause me any issues on a daily basis, but I'd love to be able to put my palms flat on the floor. I can get most of my fingers flat, but just can't quite get that last 2 inches. Any ideas? So that 2 inches is very important. It's really important to get that. What can you do? So, he's got tight hamstrings, he stretches them every day, and flexibility still isn't building up. So there's a few different things you can look at doing. First of all, make sure that you're really stretching. So if you're currently stretching for 5 minutes a day, do 15 minutes a day instead. And when you get into that hamstring stretch and you get to the point where it's really stretching, go further. don't hurt yourself, but push a little bit further. Really get into it. Maybe get somebody to push you, for example, to really increase the stretch and get to that point where you're really wincing. You need to get a balance between hurting yourself, so don't pull a muscle, but that's one thing I'd do. So sometimes you can think you're doing the right amount of stretching, and you can think that the type of stretching you're doing is enough, but in reality, you need to be pushing the stretch a little bit further. That's one thing I would do. The second thing I would do would be do some exercises that stretch off your hamstring whilst working it in your workouts. So things like Romanian deadlifts that I literally just showed you on the last one, for example. That's an exercise which stretches your hamstrings whilst working it. So that's another thing I would do. The third thing I would look at doing would be to get some kind of sports massage. Your muscle, you've got your muscle, picture a sausage, you've got sausage meat in the middle, and then around it you've got like a skin. Now that skin is called fascia, and that's like the thin sausage skin that's around it. So the muscle is the meat in the middle, the fascia is the thin skin that goes around the outside. So what can happen is that your muscle can be stretching, but the fascia, the skin around the outside, stays really tight, and you can have knots in it which need releasing. So you can use a trigger ball, just Google trigger ball, or you can use a foam roller to help roll those areas out and help release the fascia from around your muscle. And even better than that, or I would do this in conjunction with that, would be to go and see a physio or a sport masseuse and get them to massage the tight areas that you've got to help release them. So stretch more and make sure that you're really stretching properly. Sometimes you can not be stretching as well as you think you're stretching. That would be one. Go and see a sports masseuse to get that massaged out. Trigger ball / foam roll on a daily basis. And just Google to find a little bit more about what that is. I'll do some future videos on how to do that as well. And then the final thing is to add weight exercises into your resistance workouts that improve the range of motion in your hamstring, like a Romanian deadlift or a good morning, for example. Right, that's the end of the video. I hope these really helped you. If you want to watch more videos and find out as soon as they go live, then please do subscribe and also turn on the notifications, and it will be massively helpful for me, and it would just build me up a little bit, to be honest. If you could leave a comment and just tell me how you found the video. I'll take both positive and negative feedback. I'd love to hear anything from you. If you think it needs more lighting or anything at all, just shout out and let me know. I'd love to hear. But yeah, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe, turn on your notifications, and please leave a comment, and I'll see you in a few days for another MTB Fitness video. Thank you.